Aha. Tonight's video is going to be called Which Jesus Do You Prefer? I just had a very quick conversation-ish thing on Facebook here, and it really made me think about something that I think some people may want to hear if they're like on the fence of like religion and Christianity and whatnot. Um, it was just a very cool thought, and I really always want to share this with people, but I tend to forget. Okay, I just posted a meme on Facebook, and if you get a chance to see it, hopefully you do, because then you'll know why this video was made. But it said something like, Jesus hung with the poor people. He was poor. He hung with the people who society deemed, not so good. Whatever, whores and DDD and this and that, and the poor and the blee blee blees and the lepers and all that. He didn't force anything upon people. He helped everyone. He loved everyone. Blah blah. Right? That like good side of Jesus, right? Like he was a really good man, and sometimes we give him a bad rap. And a guy came on there and he said, there's about 50 things that could be wrong with this. Actually, you know what? I'll read it because what I just said did not give it justice, and it was kind of stupid. Jesus was a radical, nonviolent revolutionary who hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks. Wasn't American and never spoke English. Was anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer, but was never anti-gay. Never mentioned abortion or birth control. Never called the poor lazy. Never justified torture. Never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes. Never asked a leper for a copay, and was a long-haired, brown-skinned, homeless, community-organizing, anti-slut-shaming Middle Eastern Jew. And that's fucking awesome, I think. And I was like, that's the Jesus I like. And the guy said there's about 50 things that could be wrong with this, and it got me really thinking about a lot of the studying I've done. And he actually stopped commenting. So, but what I was gonna say to him next was, what story of Jesus do you prefer? Because if you're gonna say to me 50 things in this could be wrong, based off what? I want to always say to people, like, have you studied or looked into the Nag Hammadi library? Have you looked into or read anything about the Dead Sea Scrolls? Have you read the Book of Thomas? Have you read the Book of Mary Magdalene? Have you read the Book of Judas? Have you read any of the books about Jesus in India? There was one found in a Buddhist monastery. Well, that's the story. There was a man who was traveling in India, might have been Tibet. He was injured. He was healing in like a Buddhist temple, and he said like he wanted something to read. They gave him a book, and it was supposedly written by Jesus, and it was this story of how he was a Buddhist, and he stayed in temples, and he was a Hindu. The Hindus kicked him out because he wanted to help the poor, and a lot of Hinduism with their karmic things, they believe that the poor should be left. Some believe that the poor should be left alone because karma put them there. And there's all these different stories about Jesus. So when somebody says to me, that's not Jesus, I say, which Jesus story, fairy tale, do you want to believe? Because there's a million. Do you know the stories about when Jesus, have you read up on the story about when Jesus was little and he was by the river making doves, mud doves, and a man came by and said something along the lines of, it's the Sabbath or whatever, you're not supposed to be doing anything, and Jesus was like, hey, fuck you, man. No, he didn't say that. But the guy's like, I'm going to go tell your dad that, you're playing and you're supposed to be just studying or something like that. So the man told his dad, and Jesus' dad came. I forgot what his dad's name was, Joseph. And his dad came and got him in trouble. They were walking through the market later. Jesus saw the man and his son, and I read this a long time ago, so I don't really remember, but he either like right there, he crippled the man's son, or he killed him, like on the spot. There's another one about he was walking through a town, and this guy ran right into him, and he just killed him right on the spot. Um, and then further along, Jesus, as a little boy, there's a piece of the Bible that is missing from about ages, what was it, 12, 13 to 30. And everybody asks, where is all that stuff? Where was Jesus? Well, some people believe he was in India traveling like the Buddha did to learn all these different things. Some would say he was not a Christian at all. He was more of like eclectic. He knew everything. He was just a nice guy who wanted to study everything about the world. And so this story, this version of this Jesus in India is about him during those childhood years. So the story, there's another one where he's jumping along the roofs with his friend in like the market or the town. You've seen those like Aladdin movies. I'm sorry, I don't know if you think that's racist, but when I think of like towns back in the day, I think of like Aladdin. So I'm thinking like, how like all the buildings were close together, the roofs. So him and his friend were like jumping along the roofs, and his friend fell off and died. And since Jesus had killed the kid earlier, everybody was like, Jesus, you fucking dickhead. Like, why you keep killing people? And he was like, listen, I didn't kill this guy. Like, I didn't do this one. Like, that wasn't me. And they're like, why did you do it? Why did you do it? And he's like, look. And I think he was more like he was a kid, he didn't know what he had, like a gift. So I think he started reflecting on himself then, and perhaps saw the error in his ways, and he's like, look, and he raised the kids from the dead. He was like, I told you I'm not a dickhead, so let's go back to it. Which Jesus do you prefer? I like the Jesus who really loved everyone and wasn't at all here to tell anybody anything. He was just here to say, just be happy, man. I like the Jesus who was eclectic, because that shows that he was more loving and accepting of all the other ideas in the world. I kind of like the Jesus who fucked up as a kid and hurt people, and then like grew to learn that that's not right. I prefer that more than the Jesus that is perfect, because that really makes us feel bad about ourselves. Christianity did that to me for a while. I felt like shit because it was like, I've got to be perfect. I've got to do all this stuff. I really like the Jesus more who fucked up. And in the Bible, I really like the Jesus who flipped the table in the fucking temple. Like, don't be selling shit here. That's the Jesus I like, because now we're not all perfect. So going back to the beginning, if you're going to say to somebody, that's not Jesus, Jesus wouldn't do that, what would Jesus do? My question to you is, what Jesus are you talking about? And which story do you prefer? Feel free to fill me in. Let me know. And don't take this as me bashing you, because really, if you're questioning anything, what got me out of Christianity? Reading all this other shit and realizing, oh my God, something's not right here. And it's very interesting. Read the book of Judas. Read about how Judas might not have been the person everybody thought he was. It's good stuff.